how to defend myself against the unruly, the unrighteous, and the unjust who continue to try to violate the rights of Indigenous people, something, a principle that I have stood for over 2 decades now. So this is me, plastered in the news once again, here to tell my side of the story, which should have been an option when on the news, when being talked about by several media outlets, who is supposed to get both sides of the story. So let me talk about my side of the story so you can get a full view of who Ninti El Bey really is. And as far as this sovereign citizen crap, Aborigines and Aboriginals, Imperial Moors, Indigenous inhabitants cannot be citizens of the United States Corporation. Not even if they try. Sovereign citizen is a corporate construct, a misnomer, like black, the term made up by government ops, COINTELPRO, individuals who like to paint a narrative that is not true. Ninti El Bey is a certified master mortgage underwriter, just one of the many professional licenses that I hold regarding real estate, regarding financing and mortgages since the age of 19. Case in point, why wasn't this plastered all over the news while everything else by news reporters and YouTubers putting my name in their mouth? This is public information. I have receipts for a mobile home that I purchased. As you can see, the address 7021 Grandview Ridge Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina 28215. Cashier's checks. Purchased it outright. So where in the world and in what, I don't even know how to address this and what words to use because I'm really at a loss of words. Where do they do this at? Where does a person purchase a house, manufactured home or not, in cash, and the people come and pull you out of your house, kidnap you, put you in jail, and nobody has anything to say about it? No lawful warrant, no lawful due process of the law, or a valid court order for them to be on my premises, violating me at all. So let me go through the law. For all who don't know the law and don't understand the law, this manufactured home was purchased cash. Okay, it's titled as a vehicle in the state of North Carolina because it can be moved. It's mobile. This is registered with the DMV. It's titled as a vehicle. And all of my property is titled under the Cherokee Nation and tax exempt. Here is some of my communications with the Commissioner's Office, North Carolina's Department of the Transportation, their supervisors communicating with me regarding the titling of my manufactured home and also my transporter plate that is registered to the Cherokee Nation, which is my name, doing business as the Cherokee Nation because of my tribal affiliation, and I happen to be the tribal leader of the Cherokee Nation of Moors, Eastern Band Reservation Territory, North Carolina. By law, on the books, is reservation territory. The entire state of North Carolina, as well as many states, is still deemed reservation territory. And here are the supervisors and heads of the North Carolina Transportation Department, who is over the DMV, communicating with me by email. There is their name, signature, phone number, and seal. Talking about rectifying the situation and why I have not received my transporter plates that someone keeps taking and stealing from the mail. Individuals from the government keep stealing my transporter plates because they're exempt. They hold a certain status. So for the last 3 years, I have not been receiving my transporter plates that are registered under the Cherokee Nation with the state of North Carolina. So this is one of the communications that took place in this email, as well as the manufactured home. This is me openly communicating with the higher ups within North Carolina's Transportation Department. They are emailing me to handle the situation of my transporter plates and my mobile home, which is titled under the state as a vehicle. It is not titled as a home registered within the county. So when the unlawful postings were being made on my home from the sheriff and from alleged individuals claiming that I had to leave my home, I knew what they were doing was unlawful because there was no due process. There is a process that has to be followed. This mobile home is under the jurisdiction of North Carolina Transportation, under the DMV, registered as a vehicle. The sheriff has nothing to do with it. The sheriff doesn't have authority or jurisdiction in that situation, especially when there is no court order for them to be on my premises doing anything or saying anything. That's first off. In the state of North Carolina, there are several statutes and codes that address issues relating to the ownership of manufactured homes, landlord-tenant relationships, and eviction processes. Here are some relevant North Carolina statutes. Property ownership. If the manufactured home was purchased outright in cash, the buyer generally holds legal title to that home. In this case, it's important to determine whether the land on which the home sits is owned by the individual or if it is leased under different ownership. In North Carolina, the situation regarding a manufactured home being leased on a lot is generally governed by distinct legal principles which are outlined in the contract. In my case, there is no such agreement that was made when I bought this manufactured home. Ownership of the manufactured homes. North Carolina General Statute, Section 105-273, defines manufactured home and clarifies that a manufactured home is considered personal property unless it has been permanently affixed to real estate. If a person has paid for a manufactured home in full, they are considered the owner of that home, regardless of whether they owe lot rent. Ownership of the home is separate from the lease of the land. Lease agreements and lot rent. The obligation to pay lot rent is a separate issue. If the occupant fails to pay the lot rent, the landlord or lessor may have the right to initiate eviction proceedings against the occupant from the land, but this does not give the landlord any rights to take possession of the manufactured home itself. This is in the event that I did owe any lot rent. This is pursuant to North Carolina statute. Eviction process. If the occupant does not pay the lot rent, the landlord must follow the proper legal process for eviction. They cannot simply take the manufactured home. They must go through court proceedings to lawfully oust the occupant from the property. Possession of the home. If the occupant is evicted, they typically retain ownership of the manufactured home unless there is a specific grounds or agreement that state otherwise, such as a conditional sale agreement or a lien placed on the property. So, this is how real estate works, and especially in the case of this manufactured home that is paid for in cash by Ninti El Bey. If I owe anybody lot rent, they would have to go to court to achieve a lien for that amount. Say, for instance, they said I owed them $2,000. They would have to get a lawful judgment in the amount of $2,000. After they receive a lawful judgment for $2,000, they would have to go and apply again in court to place a lien for that $2,000 upon the manufactured home itself. And the only way they can get paid that $2,000 after they place the lien on the property is once the house is sold, or it just means it's a lien on the house that has to be satisfied prior to me selling it or anything being done with the home. That lien will have to be paid off first. It does not give them the right to uplift the home, take it, and remove it. This is actually what these individuals try to do. Bum rush me, railroad me, came to my home, kidnapped me out of my home without due process, without a lawful court order. They had the trucks there, the tow trucks there, a big rig there ready to uplift my home, uplift the manufactured home from the ground, and tow trucks there attempting to tow the vehicles. that I own. So, potential for personal property claims. While the landlord or landowner, pardon me, while the landowner can seek to recover any financial losses related to unpaid rent through legal avenues, they cannot unilaterally claim the manufactured home as compensation. This is written in the law. Okay. Title to the manufactured homes in North Carolina are registered like vehicles with the DMV because it is not affixed to real estate and it may be moved or transported. It is mobile. It is not registered with the county records as real estate. The unlawful officials, corrupt sheriffs, and the cartels that were involved were all corrupt, along with false media that smeared my name and their whole smear campaign orchestrated by corrupt officials in Charlotte, North Carolina, which included judges, sheriffs, county clerks, attorneys, and cartel members who worked all together with them to produce false paperwork. I was not going for it. I was not buying it because I know the law. They came and railroaded me with false deputies in unmarked vehicles. It was a huge mistake for them to come for me. Why they tried it again, I don't know. They've been trying it for years. In 2010, I wrote a case that completely smashed the state of North Carolina, city of Charlotte, and Mecklenberg County. The Department of Justice picked this case up that I have written and sued them for $101,006,000. It's clearly in the public record, can be found in the state legislature of North Carolina, and you can Google it and find it. So this may have something to do with why they continue to try to target me, because I am who I am. I stand on straight business of my principles and what I stand for, and I make them bow down to that. But whatever the case, nobody has the right to violate you and your liberties. And what they have done to me and my family and my children, they have surely paid for it and continue and will continue to pay for it as long as I have breath in my body. In summary, the alleged owner of the lot cannot simply take possession of the manufactured home due to unpaid lot rent. The proper legal procedures must be followed for eviction. The ownership of the home remains with the person who purchased it. This information can be clearly and easily found in public records under North Carolina statute ownership of manufactured homes. NC General Statute, Section 105-273. Ethical reporters and news broadcasters are supposed to follow a code of ethics when reporting the news and reporting on all sides of the story before airing a news report. None of these ethical practices were done in my case, in my situations with WSOC Channel 9 and any of the other ones all around the country that decided to air this story. None of the news reporters contacted or reported any public records about Ninti El Bey on my behalf, telling the other side of the story. There's plenty of court documents, registered deed documents, and notices to the state regarding my status, tribal affiliation, and tribal court that is established under the rights of indigenous peoples and autonomy. The UN Charter 1514. Okay, Channel 9 News and WSOC have been sued for this unethical conduct in the past, clearly going down in the Hall of Shame for their unethical practices, especially dealing with Ninti El Bey. People who are relaying stories about another person's life. There are practices that they are supposed to abide by regarding journalism. They are encouraged to report ethical stories based on evidence. None of this was ever done in my situation. They simply painted a one-sided picture that was void of the truth. Absolutely none of it was true. As you can see, the money order, the cashier's check, I paid cash for this house. Due to the years of harassment and the unlawful ejectments that have been done against me and my family, I bought a house. When I had the opportunity and the money in my hand, I went and bought a house. These individuals still decided to target me, and they were going to meet their own agenda no matter what I did. And still putting false lies in the news that I'm squatting, when they can clearly find the fact that I paid for this house. Why a liar lies, I have no idea. Why haters hate, you have to ask them. Maybe it's because I've smashed them in court and they simply cannot win and they cannot beat me because I'm standing on truth and straight business at all times. Unethical officials involved, such as Sheriff Gary McFadden, are now coming out in the news to apologize for unethical practices in Charlotte, North Carolina. Mecklenberg County rogue unofficial sheriff and deputies falsely ejected me and my child from our home that I had paid for. This is outside of their jurisdiction and their authority. And now they're being exposed for all unethical practices. Here's Sheriff Gary McFadden in his Masonic stance or his Masonic pose, attempting to apologize for unethical practices recently within the last month. And recently, in the last few weeks, fired an employee, a high-ranking employee, for not abiding by unlawful, unethical suggestions or orders. She says the firing was retaliatory. Mecklenburg County Sheriff was asked to cross ethical lines. They wanted her to fudge some type of documentation. There's news articles that can be further looked into regarding that. So I suppose that I have been targeted because of one of the reasons is because of this. And this can be found on North Carolina legislative reports online. This is a constitutional claim and a case that was won that I had written back in 2010. Family of the Moors by, for, and with Ninti El Bey versus the state of North Carolina and all. The city of Charlotte and Mecklenberg County was involved as well. And it was a judge named for their unlawful, unethical practices and their violations against the rights of Indigenous peoples and various other constitutional claims. So this case was settled out of court under a constitutional claim. The state of North Carolina was forced to settle by the United States Department of Justice. You see the case, you see the parties, you see the amount, and here's the statute that talks about settlements. There's no case number, and there's no other court documentation about what court it was in or anything like that, because it was settled out of court regarding constitutional claims. The entire case that I brought was for $100 million. The United States Department of Justice apparently added $1,006,000 to that. The original case was for a plain $100 million. So they picked up the case and sued these clowns for all that money, and they had to settle. And this case is, to my credit, in my name versus the state of North Carolina. This is one of the contentions they have with me. In addition to me walking in my power, walking in who I am as a tribal leader. More about the case can be seen and found online and on my other YouTube channel, Imperial Lectures, as well as other court sessions where I have completely smashed state attorneys, fraternal order attorneys, police attorneys. Commonly, I would put them on the stand. I went through probably 7-8 years of just having fun with them in court. Every time they thought they could challenge me, I stood on my 10 toes and shut them down. I am a tribal leader standing on the international law and the rights of indigenous peoples and the right to autonomy through our own tribal court, which has full faith and credit in every courtroom, in every court in America. We have full faith and credit. There has not ever been any valid, legal, or lawful charges brought against Empress Ninti El Bey pursuant to due process of the law, which every person must be afforded due process of the law. If you do not know what due process of the law is, you need to go and study it so that you know when your due process of the law is being violated. Unlawful evictions have been politically motivated. Misinformation, unlawful claims, false arrests, and smear campaigns do not classify as law. Soon the full truth about Empress Ninti El Bey will come out to the world. Stay tuned. Peace and love, Empress Ninti El Bey. Over and out. Standing on for business at all times. Peace.